Welcome to the Necronama.com, where we're spending all of October looking at 31 episodes of The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror. I'm James Sabata.
I'm Don Guillory.
And I'm Thomas Brungardt.
And what are we doing here? This is weird.
I'm still trying to figure it out myself.
So we're doing 31 days of Treehouse of Horror starting tomorrow. Only 30 of them have been released. So
I was going to say, well, we're doing at least 30. Who knows about the 31st one?
You guys do not sound hyped up about this. You should be more excited. We at the Necronama.com podcast are discussing the Simpsons special episodes entitled, well, they go from the Halloween special to Treehouse of Horror. We're doing it all of October, all 31 episodes, including the one that hasn't been released yet. Starts tomorrow. James, Thomas, and I are going to delight you with the way we're able to break down the episodes, what we liked out of them, what worked, what didn't work, and even the social commentary that exists for some and the social commentary that doesn't exist for others. Including James's favorite episode, which is episode 20.
I'm going to edit that out. Nobody gets to know which one it is. You have to find out on your own.
You could just bleep out
it.
The number.
Bleep it.
I'm just going to have to bleep beep. Every time anybody says beep, just going to get bleeped over and over again.
I don't think it's too late to change the bingo cards there, is it?
The bingo cards are set in stone. You need to download yours today and play along.
That's right.
Then that means they're digital, not in stone.
And some of you may have questions like, what if you win by episode beep? Well, then you get 21 more episodes for free.
You can download a second card. How exciting. But what do you get if you finish the card?
Tasteful boudoir photos of James, myself, and Thomas, not all at the same time, but,
we can Photoshop them together.
I have a firefighter helmet and a feather boa ready to go.
Perfect.
At all times. Always loaded up. James, I know that there were some emails asking about what we were doing. Yeah,
fans have been sending questions. It's crazy.
The switchboards are lighting up. That's not how that works, but...
Well, let's jump into one of them. All right, so I'll just pick one at random here. This one seems to be from James in Phoenix. And James wants to know, why did you guys do this, and what made you think this was a good idea?
Well, I think what happened was James and I were spitballing ideas, and I just kind of threw it out that there was going to be 31 Treehouse of Horrors after this year, and there just so happens to be 31 days in October, which is the most horrifying month of the year. So what better way to do it than to argue about which episodes of The Simpsons we hated the most? But I think we all grew up with The Simpsons, so we're all fans of the show. So it was a fun idea. In theory, communism works. But to have actually done it, it was not what I expected it to be, but I'm glad that we decided to do it.
So from my point of view, I literally was like, that's the greatest idea I've ever heard. And that's because I had stopped watching Treehouse of Horror at like episode 10. And then jumping back in, I got that nostalgia moment at first, and I was super excited. And then we reached like 11, 12, 15, somewhere in there. And it was like, what have we done? But like looking at it now, like having done all 30 that we can do so far, it really speaks to how it catered to different generations. And I feel like I timed out on it being relevant to me at that point. Because when I come in later towards the end, I'm identifying with it from another point of view. And this actually hit me way later, like even since we recorded the 30th episode, because we did Trick or Treat with Gory Corey, and I was talking about how that movie looks at the different aspects of Halloween. So like you have the story from when you're a kid, and the story from when you're a teenager with your friends, and the story when you're in your 20s and everything's about sex. and then the story that's basically about being a dad and that part of it, and how it caters to all the different parts of it. And it really made me feel that way about The Simpsons. Like, I feel that this lull I hit in the middle was just that it wasn't aimed at me anymore. A lot of the things that they were going after weren't things that I watched or weren't things that I was into. And towards the end, they hit a lot of stuff that is again. So, I don't know. Did either of you have that same sort of roller coaster, or did you just think it was shitty writing, or what?
Don,
You
what do
should still
think?
download episodes 11 through 22. I'm not saying don't do that.
There's still nice analysis with those episodes, even the ones that aren't as great as some of the others. But yeah, I've got to agree with both of you on that. It's not just a nostalgia trip. It's also about understanding the humor of the early period, at least those first 10 years, the 11 through 20, and then of course 21 through 30. And you see changes throughout. You see, as you said, James, you see more catering to a changing audience, incorporating different parts of horror, whether we're talking about literature, whether we're talking about film, or parodying television shows, or even legends for that matter. So I think it does altogether. It does a good job of getting you a little bit more reinvested in both Halloween as well as The Simpsons, because these are kind of fun episodes where the storylines or the continuity doesn't matter at all. I mean, you have, small moments of continuity that do matter as far as relationships with people and things like that. But as far as the stories that are offered, they're fun, lighthearted, cynical. There's some political commentary and social commentary in several of them. I would say even many of them. There's some where there's not as much, but again, that's one of the things about The Simpsons. Some of the things are not about being deep. Some of it's just, let me just go for a cheap gag or a cheap joke at this moment to get away with it. And it works for some audiences, and for others it doesn't. But not every episode, not every season is for everyone. I mean, and even as you said, James, growing up, I would compare the Simpsons Halloween specials or Treehouse of Horror, when they changed the name, to how people identify with Star Wars, or at least the different trilogies of Star Wars. Whereas you have people who are hell-bent on upholding the original trilogy as immaculate, and then the prequels as the worst thing ever, and then others the same thing with have the same feeling of love and hate with the most recent trilogies. But each group, each generation responds to it differently. Whereas my daughter might not like the originals, she'll like the newer ones more. She'll like the prequels more because she doesn't identify with those older films like a lot of people in Star Wars may.
That's a really interesting analogy, because you do have the people that somehow love every Star Wars movie that comes out. And I'm sure there's somebody out there that's seen all 7,842 Simpsons episodes. So, yeah. All right. Thomas, would you like to read one of the emails that came in? Or
sure.
Don? Either way.
I got one here from, the name is Professor Don G. from Mississippi. Sleepless in Mississippi, in parentheticals. It says, I think this is a great idea. I know I can't wait. Well, that's not a question, Professor. Well, thank you, Professor Don G. from Mississippi. I thought it was a great idea, too, and I definitely can't wait.
All right. Well, I got an email in front of me. It's they just left the initials. It's TB12, saying he's a longtime fan of the show. He's trying to get adjusted to his new digs. Something about, can't make out his, I don't know. This email's leaving me a little deflated. But he's pointing out that he's actually saying that, the Halloween specials are pretty good, but something about how he wishes the episodes that involved athletes would have been incorporated more, and how both The Simpsons and Family Guy did this, and they were his favorite episodes. Anyway, it sounds like a complete douchebag to me, but
well, I also have one more email here. This one is from somebody named Thomas B. from the West Coast. And Thomas writes, what did you guys learn from this that you were not expecting?
Oh, he sounds like a real asshole, but I wanted to say something after having watched all of these that we touch on a little bit in the later episodes, but I wanted to reiterate that it's just such a special thing to be able to go back and watch 30 years worth of television, especially the episodes and years that we didn't watch during its original run. And I know that those of you out there there's people out there who don't want to watch these because they're not as good as the ones they liked, or they're not going to measure up to what they remember them to be. And you're absolutely right, but you definitely should go back, and I'll tell you why. Because we all have those years of The Simpsons that we take ownership of and mean the most to us, and at some point all of us stopped watching for whatever reason. We just stopped liking it, or we grew out of it. But to go back and watch the show evolve over the years after you stopped watching it is kind of like losing touch with a friend and then having the opportunity to look in on their lives and see what they've been doing, and to see that they've been doing well. All of the basic rules and principles of The Simpsons we loved in the 90s are still there. And it's honestly, it's a little sad to watch it and know that you kind of missed out on so much, the way you'd miss out on a friendship. But it's also comforting to know that they're doing well. And after talking about these with you guys and watching them all, I feel good knowing that something that was so formative and important to me as a kid has continued and grown into something that it's not what I loved as a kid when I watched it before. The new episodes are not what they used to be, but it's important to me knowing that so many people still love it, and it's still special. And that's why it's lasted so long. And I wanted to thank you guys for doing this with me and including me. It's been really fun for me to go back and be able to relive all of these and to see them through your eyes too.
That's really cool. Don, do you have anything to add to that?
I was going to say, I can't really follow that. That was nice and heartfelt and made me feel good. And
yeah, that's why I chose you instead of answering myself. Yeah.
Which is why I went with TB12, because I wanted you to ask that question of Thomas.
Aww.
So, and plus I want to throw TB12 in there. But no,
I want to under a bus.
As far as your response, Thomas, and what we talked about when we were recording the shows, and James as well, what we talked about, I expressed kind of the same thing, but from a different angle. I look back on it because there was this period where I stopped watching it. And it wasn't until Fox, or I'm sorry, not Fox, but FXX did the Every Simpsons Ever marathon for like 2 weeks or however long it took. And I sat down and I watched and I caught up on episodes. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's some stuff that's still funny in this. There's still some cool things on it. Oh, okay, this was a cool thing that was going on. Oh my God, this person's dead. So there are all these things that were coming up on the show that I really felt like, as you stated, it's a friend that you just lost track of, which was very common for me. You lost track of, you caught back up with him. You're like, oh my gosh, I could pick back up with you today, just as if there hadn't been 20 years of separation between us. But I think there's also a really good point about this, which I've experienced. James said he didn't have the same experience with his daughter, but being able to go back and watch these episodes with my daughter, who's much younger than I was when these shows came out, but to see how she appreciates some of the humor, finds things that are funny, and you get that moment to where you get to see it not just from your own perspective, and then also from your nostalgic perspective of watching it when you were younger, but seeing it through somebody else's eyes who hasn't been exposed to it yet, and seeing what works for someone of that age, as opposed to what you've kind of grown accustomed to or find funny or just might not get.
Yeah, and that's cool that you guys get to experience that with your kids. I haven't even met my kids yet, so
they haven't gotten in the time machine to come back.
Once their mom tells them who their dad is, I'll cut that. Don't worry.
No, you don't have to. I love it.
You guys have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, please watch along with it and download the episodes and play bingo, because it's another level of fun.
I mean, I know I kind of bashed a few episodes, and you definitely get that from me, especially in episode. Beep. Download all of them, because if you don't listen to every episode from us, you're not going to find the secret code, and you won't know how to enter the contest that you can win. So make sure you download all 31, even if I'm lying.
And please send $1 to Happy Dude at thenecronomy.com. I will say that there are moments during the run where I think all of us kind of get discouraged and we forget why we're doing it, and we even forget why we like The Simpsons. And then we kind of come around to it again, and we realize that we should be having more fun. So if you feel like we're just being like downers about it, it gets better.
Yeah, I actually want to talk to that point really fast, because I do feel like, especially me, I had some episodes where I went into it with a really bad mood already. And that's just COVID and life and quarantine and a million stressors.
And an election year.
Yeah, and shit just sucked. And I really got to the point where I had to sit there and really think about, why are we doing this? And it was never about social commentary with this. Like, we knew going in that, well, okay, so I thought there'd be more when we were going in, but I knew going in it wasn't going to be perfect by any means, and it wasn't going to be like our Jaws episode or something like that, where it went super literary criticism level, So I knew that going in, but I thought there'd be more. But my point is, like, I really kind of lost sight for a while of why I was excited to do this. And I was so excited for this because this influenced my life. And as a writer, I always come back to EC Comics. I come back to Cycle of the Werewolf by Stephen King, or just these different books that really hit me. And these Treehouse episodes, I'm the direct opposite of Thomas. These are the episodes I fucking lived for. I couldn't wait for these fucking episodes. And I really got that on that 1 to 10, because that's what I grew up with, and those are the ones that influenced me. And I feel like when we talked about the others, I lost that again. But I did this great thing where I totally fucked up, and I deleted episodes 4, 5, and 6 after we recorded them. And 4, 5, and 6 are 3 out of our 4 favorite episodes, I would say, or at least mine. I shouldn't speak for everybody.
No, definitely.
But so I was depressed. I was pissed off. I couldn't fucking believe that I deleted these episodes by accident. And what it did is, after we went through all of them, I got to go back to the ones I truly love and record them again. If you don't download all 31, download those 3, because our love is fucking back at that point, 100%. And I feel like if you're anything like us, those were the episodes that meant the most to you anyway. So I'm glad that those are the ones I accidentally deleted and we had to redo. But what my real point with that is, if you grew up with these and you stopped watching at some point, when you go to watch them, start with the ones after that. Watch them in order from there, and then go back to the ones you loved. That's my advice.
That's great advice. I agree with that. And to your point, saying that I wasn't the biggest fan of Treehouse of Horror, I've come around to it at this point, and I'm excited to watch episode 31 and to see where that takes us.
I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoy listening to it as much as we enjoyed making it.
This concludes another episode of the Necronama.com with James Sabata, Don Guillory, and Thomas Sexbot Brungardt.